founder of the Innocent Brown Girl Project, and this is the TeachHer podcast, powered by the Innocent Brown Girl Project. Our mission is to convey strategies for grit and grace with educators and advocates of African American and Latina girls. Thank you for joining us today. Our affirmation for today is, I am a problem solver and I will find a way. Today, our guest is Dr. Queinnise Miller. Even after more than 20 years as an educator, Dr. Miller continues to have a passion for teaching, learning, and reading. As a teacher, motivational speaker, trainer, author, and educational leader, Dr. Miller is driven by a belief that all children deserve a world-class education, regardless of cultural or economic background. Her proudest work has been that of a school principal, where she believes her job is to support and serve the people who make the magic happen, the people who really make the difference, teachers. In her book, Dr. Miller shares her story as a teacher in an urban school and offers advice, suggestions, and insights for aspiring new and veteran teachers. Dr. Miller holds a bachelor's degree in Spanish, a master's degree in educational administration, and a doctorate degree of philosophy and educational leadership. She is also a mother of 2 beautiful children. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the podcast, Dr. Miller.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and honored for the opportunity. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Can you start by telling us about your journey in education?
Journey in education is like a journey through life. Definitely, after 20 years, I cannot even believe I have done this for 20 years. Time flies because this wasn't my first choice. I went to school to be a pharmacist. I was going to make big money and I was going to, ride off into the sunset with, as a pharmacist. But, life happens. And while I was in that space, I hated what I was doing. I worked my butt off on those biology classes and to get a C. And I was like, this can't be life. And so, after some prayer, I ended up shifting my major over to Spanish. And my mother was like, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, I have no idea. Shifted my major over to Spanish. And the reason why I did that is because I loved it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the culture. And I thought, how cool would it be if I could become bilingual? A Black girl from Oak Cliff, Texas, being able to be bilingual. And, little did I know how society was going to be shifting, specifically with the Latino culture. And so, but God knew. And so after shifting my major, I lived in Spain for a while, became fluent in Spanish. And it was like, okay, so now what do I do? And so I ended up, a friend of mine was like, well, you can go be a teacher. And I had no experience, no thought of even going into education. And so I was like, how do you do that? And that was when the alternative certification program just came out. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. And so 20 years ago, I alternative certification, and here I am still. And I can't believe that they paid me to do this work. I have done so many things in education. I'm currently a sitting principal in a middle school, and which is, definitely, if you know anything about middle school, very, 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 very interesting. But I'm a current principal in middle school, but I've done so many things. I've been an elementary, middle, high school teacher. I've taught ESL, Spanish, bilingual classes. I've served as a teacher leader, assistant principal, a central office manager, a director, educational trainer in various districts across the state of Texas, and now writing and doing consulting. And I absolutely loved every minute of it. And so that's my journey. It has been a journey, and it still continues. My dream in this journey is to one day become a tenured professor, teaching educational leaders. And before going into this work, because I believe that, education, the leadership piece of this work is one of the most critical pieces and makes the biggest difference for those that serve children. So that's my journey. Woo!
Awesome. So it's always interesting to talk to educators because everyone gets to this place in such a different fashion. There's so many ways that we get here. So can you tell us why this work is so important to you?
Oh, that's a good question. So this work is important to me because To be honest with you, I believe that this is God's work. I think that he gives us the opportunity to truly impact his most precious gift, which is children. And that's from the pre-K level all the way to the doctorate level, because learning is something that happens that should be lifelong. And so, but he gives us this opportunity to impact children. And so that's one of the reasons why. So if I could break it down, love is why this is important to me, because it is God's work and God is love. The second thing would be legacy. So in this work, we have the opportunity to truly dictate and determine what our future looks like through those that will be leading the future, children, right? And so we make this forever impact on kids. Everything that we do, everything that we say, we've got these blank slates that we get to decide what it is that they think, feel, and believe about themselves and about everything around them, right? So love, legacy, and then finally, why this work is so important to me is the liberation, specifically for Black, brown, poor, disenfranchised groups of people, diverse groups of people, and in addition to educators, right? So this liberation of understanding that knowledge is power. When you know things and when you have this knowledge, you're able to shift your society, your community, your lives based on knowledge. And so our people sometimes, and even the Bible says, the people will perish because of a lack of knowledge. And so in education, that is what we do. We give knowledge, and that knowledge has the power to transform lives and society. In addition, I think this work is important, specifically the work that I do as a consultant of Queinnise, is the liberation of educators and giving them the freedom through transparency of remembering why we do what we do. We get so inundated with the politics, the compliance, the assessments, the things that surround education that actually have nothing to do with the work of loving children and impacting their lives. So my hope is to be able to help liberate educators so that they can operate in that true, authentic space of making a difference for children.
And that rings so true, because if you notice, a lot of times when you ask people what they don't like about teaching, it's never the teaching or the being with the kids, or it's like, well, this happened and I have to do this. And so that's absolutely so true. So, which brings me to your book, The Art of Giving a Shit, a memoir and guidebook for urban educators. So I did read it. I have finished it and I thought it was great. So I'm excited to share it with more educators and my team this year as well. So why should all educators read your book?
Good. So first of all, thank you for reading it. I really do hope that you enjoyed it and that it's something you'll be able to take to the people that you mentor and other educators. Let's see, the short of this, if I can be short, good luck with this. But there's a few reasons why I think educators need to read my book. The first reason is it's real life. And so I think that there's spaces where we sometimes just do not share what actually is happening, not only in the classroom, but the thinking and the thoughts and the feelings of those that are serving children, right? So my book offers this real life experience for those that either are educators or thinking about being educators, or even parents or scholars, to give a perspective of what's really happening. The next reason why I think that it's important for educators to read my book is because it takes this theory of culturally responsive teaching and culturally responsive caring. It brings that theory to practice, right? What does this actually look like in a K through 16 space? Because in school, we are taught different theories, but very rarely are professors able to come and say, well, this is how this looks. And so I think that that's important, and you'll get that through my book. And then, of course, like I said, the reader can connect through a personal story And I think that that's important, that connection space, to better understand why the theory is even important. And I think the book is for not just educators, right? I think the book is good for educators that are new as well as old. It's good for parents to know, what is it that I should expect from teachers or from the educational system in regards to my child? I don't know that parents even understand they should hold teachers and schools and leaders accountable for loving their children as their own and advocating for them in ways that you would your own child. I don't know that they hold us responsible or accountable for that, and they should. And this book is going to help them get a better understanding of that. And then finally, I think that this book is also for anybody that serves other people, right? Because again, the foundation of it is love. The foundation of it is this service to mankind is what education is, what teaching and leading is all about. And so I think that those are the people that this book is for. And I think it serves a different purpose for educators that are veteran or that are new in a different way, right? So a new teacher may look at this book, and I think that it will help them with just this anxiety of teaching for the first time. I mean, remember, Chrissy, like your first time teaching that first year, like it's scary. And I think this book kind of can help, validate some of those feelings and help new teachers through this, and also understand their bigger purpose of why they're doing what they're doing. And then for veteran educators, it's this space where it's a reminder of their why and their purpose in the work, right? And giving them a perspective on how to balance academics with relationships, because sometimes that's a difficult balance. And sometimes I think that educators end up foregoing that in which is going to make the biggest life impact in the relationship piece for making sure that the scores are what they need to be. So yeah, and I hope it's just a good read. It's a good read.
I really enjoyed it. I really did. I've recommended it to colleagues and teammates and everything. So I'm excited for more people to read it, because it really, really is a good read. And I could see how it could be so applicable for new teachers just coming into this, especially now, because so many things have changed just in the last year. And then, people whose maybe teacher prep programs didn't quite pan out the way they thought they would, especially because of COVID. A lot of people are having, coming with so many different experiences now. So I think it will definitely be super beneficial for everyone. So as a middle school principal, so we know that the middle school years can be very difficult for our girls, like the most difficult. Can you share some ways educators can support the girls they serve each day to ensure they are successful during that middle school time?
Girl, middle school. May the Lord bless us and keep us in middle school. So the first, piece of, I guess, advice or support would be for all educators really, but specifically middle school, is to love children. And I keep saying that as if, some people are like, well, of course, that's a no-brainer. But the reality is it's not necessarily, this notion of what love is from a biblical standpoint, right? The patient, love is kind, love is, it doesn't boast, love suffers all things. Like, I can go on and on about of what that actually means, but it's important. It's important to be able to understand that they're humans, right? First, before they're anything else. And I think that when we do that, we make the biggest difference. And everything that surrounds, because there's a lot in education, there's a lot. Those things fall in place as they should. And you actually make more progress in those spaces when children know that you love them and care about them. The second thing I would say is, in middle school, you got to get over yourself. Middle school is not created equal to any other level in spaces in schooling. Again, I've done pre-K all the way to 12th grade, and middle school is a very fragile space because these children are coming in with specifically, and I know we're talking about girls, right? And I'll kind of get to that, but these children are coming with these 5-year-old, and this is based on research, 5-year-old brains, right, with these 35-year-old hormones. And some of them are beginning to experience the senses of life for the very first time. It's scary. It's confusing. It's low-key traumatic for middle school children, and their parents, because when my baby was in middle school, Lord Jesus, I didn't know who was going to make it. I didn't know how we were going to make it. I just had to surrender him over because, I had to keep my job and I did want him to continue to breathe. But it's a transition space for everyone and it's difficult. It's hard. So you have to get over you. You cannot be in serving middle school girls specifically. Oh, my Lord Jesus. And be thinking about you, because they need you in a very special way. And they're going to do and say things that make the normal person not want to serve in that way, right? I know many a times as a middle school principal, specifically the girls, right? They call me all sorts of, I don't know if I can say bad words on your podcast, B's and H's. And I mean, I have been everything, but you got to be able to understand that that's not who they are and be able to see that. So you got to get over yourself. And then you got to understand that this work it's heart work, right? You've got to be able to prioritize the social emotional needs of children over sometimes their academic success, because the reality is if the social emotional space is not cultivated and nurtured and honored, then academically they won't excel. And then specifically for girls, I think that the affirmations, because they need to hear who they are, what they are, whose they are, what they are able to do. And they need to hear those affirmations on a regular basis because they believe what we tell them. And in middle school, as they are hearing these affirmations, their bodies may not feel it, they may not see it, but you're planting these seeds of life and love and success in them that begin to blossom, right? So you're planting so many seeds, and then the watering happens sometimes when they get to high school. So yeah, I could probably go on, but those are some good ones.
Yes. And so my next question, which we kind of, we talked about this a little bit just now, actually, but are there any resources or strategies that you would recommend for educators and advocates to support their girls at home or in their classrooms? Affirmations are a great one. That is a big one that I push so much when I work with other educators, like affirming, and of course, building relationships. I think a lot of teachers don't really, sometimes it takes you a while as a teacher to see how important it is, because you're just especially when you're first starting out, there's so many things, but it's like the most, important thing. Like, I think that's one of the first things people see when they come in my classroom. They're like, your kids get you and you get them. So everything else is like lanyard, because we've got that relationship, and that's so important. And it's not necessarily hard, but every year I'm like, oh, I don't know if this group is going to get me like the last group did, and they prove me wrong. Like every year it's like even more so. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like teaching like bigger kids, like 5th grade. I'm like, we get each other, as opposed to, I know there's people who primary grades are their thing, but this is my thing. And I think that's just so important. So, and so many people don't see it. It takes a couple of years, and then you're like, wait a minute, back up. This is what I need to do. I need to make sure that we have that relationship, so that, because students will rise to meet your expectations, but you have to, they have to know. So is there any other resources or strategies that you would recommend?
So it's funny you asked that. So in my book, if you read, I don't know if you remember in chapter 3, there's a toolbox there that talks about strategy specifically around discipline and discipline from a whole child perspective, because I think that avocation first starts in the classroom, right, with the children. And so there's 16 or 17 different strategies that I give in the book on how to truly support and build those impactful relationships that make a life difference. And so definitely you got to get the book. Chapter 3 is one of my favorite chapters because it does go into those 16 things. But if I could just kind of give, a few now to those the educators and advocates to support girls, is one, you yourself have to be a lifelong learner, right? You have to be able to continue to read. If you're not reading, you're not leading. That's whether you're in the classroom or out of the classroom. Continuing to read to build your own self-efficacy and your own capacity, so that you can give more, right? You can only give what you put in. And so reading is important for you, but also for the girls, right? Finding literature, specifically literature that speaks to who they are as diverse, Black girl magic, or Latinas, no importa lo que es, pero like finding that literature that helps validate and affirm them and reading it to them. Because as you create this love for reading, because when they love you, they love whatever you love, right? And so when you help them with understanding the power of reading, right, and goes back to this whole knowledge space, it can change so many areas of their lives and those that they will one day, children that they will one day have or one day serve. And the reading resources, I mean, we don't even have time to talk about what you could read, but I'm just gonna throw in, definitely reading. There's a book called The Secret that talks about this law of attraction and understanding that everything that they want and that they believe and that they see, it will attract to them. Like, I mean, imagine knowing that as a young child and believing that what your life could look like, right? Culturally responsive books for educators to really understand how to meet the needs of diverse learners. Anyway, okay, we don't have time for all the books, but there's a lot. Another thing that I would say is always be honest. Children need you to be real. They need you to be honest. They need to know that they can depend on you for you to tell them the truth that is going to positively impact them, right? And then finally, I would say consistency. Now I got 17 of these, but I'm gonna just stop with that one, but being consistent, and because it creates a safe space for those girls to be able to come to you, to confide in you, and they know what to expect. One of them that you said, which is another strategy, is this level of high expectations. They will rise or fall to whatever expectation you have for them, right? So this understanding and this belief, first, you gotta know and believe that they can do it. What happens in education is you have educators or in classrooms that are wanting to support and advocate children, but that internally do not believe that they can do said. Now that is something that as an educational leader, I am always trying to get to the core of, because if you don't believe they can do it, then you can't even set the expectation for them to be able to rise to it. So I know you don't want me on here preaching, so I'm gonna stop right there. But those are a few things that educators.
Thank you so much for sharing. Those are amazing. And yes, get the book so you can read all of them. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the TeachHer community?
The first thing is, I would say it's the summertime and everyone is hopefully recharging. And so I would just like to encourage this community to make sure that you're focusing on self-care. Self-care is so critical, especially when you are in a space and in a position to shift generations of a people through education. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to make sure that you are filling your tanks so that you can have something to give. So that is one of the biggest things I would say. The next one, specifically for all of the phenomenal women in the community, is to be fly. And you can't see me, but I wore my Fly Girl t-shirt today, which means first loving yourself. It's a nonprofit that my baby sister has, where they're encouraging women to love yourself. And that sounds like it's an easy or simple task, but it takes work. But when you love yourself and when you understand what that looks like and sounds like, you can inspire other girls to do the same thing. And you can show them and take their hands on how to do that. Because when you love you, then no one else has the ability to not show you that love. And you won't accept that from anyone else. And then finally, each one teach one. And basically the understanding of together we're powerful, and every single one of us comes with a different level of experiences and a different level of knowledge. But when we are able to share those things within our sister groups or within our communities, then we become more powerful. So those are the things I would like to add. And I just cannot tell you again how honored I am to be here to help serve your community of TeachHer, and I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. The last thing is, can you share where our listeners can find more information about all things Dr. Miller?
Absolutely. You can visit my website at www.queinnise.com. Follow me on Twitter at Queinnise, as well as Facebook Queinnise. So, and IG Queinnise. All things Queinnise. All things Queinnise can be found at Queinnise.
Awesome. And I will link all of those in the show notes so that our listeners can go right to it and follow you and get your book and everything. Thank you again so much for joining me today. It was an honor to interview you. I'm excited about my listeners getting to hear this episode.
And thank you for your service to this wonderful community. All the Black girls and Latino girls and diverse girls are so lucky to have you in your ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much to my listeners for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe to the show. Also follow us on Instagram at @the_TeachHer podcast.